No, because if I do, then knowing me, I don't really know how to get it on there and then something will happen. I'll just work on keeping my abs in. Instead of doing this, how about that?
Alright, I don't think this is gonna help you much, but you will.
Is the temperature better now for everybody?
My notes are so bad. I always tell clients, they're like, hey, could you give me a copy of your notes? I'm like, you won't be able to. You'll be able to read the words, but you won't really understand what they mean.
Where's the chambers now?
Yeah.
My mouth doesn't go dry this time. Okay, awesome. I'll go back.
No, I had a car issue. My car was, I ended up riding over my mechanics in a tow truck.
Oh, are those new pictures?
Isn't that a great picture?
That's a phenomenal picture.
Lori K. Stone.
I have that same background.
Oh, funny. You know where that is?
Yeah.
It's a great picture.
Actually, when you're taking them, you're going, really? Like, do we need the mole on the concrete?
Yeah, it's a great photo.
Okay, so the purpose here is to, so I presented this on Saturday with no notes. And the feedback that I got was I was all about I and not a lot about, my stories were great, but I still wasn't transitioning out with making it relevant to people. I had a lot of I's. So I changed. I haven't changed it enough to feel like I can say it, so I might be rude, just so I can make sure that I'm getting it with the eyes. So that's the goal. Still telling the stories, because the stories are really important, but getting it relevant back to you and what you can get and what you can learn. Cool?
Yep.
Great. Okay. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and you're out on a cafe, and you're having brunch with friends. And you know you do what's really important socially. You put your phone in your pocket, and it's on vibrate. And you're enjoying your afternoon, and then you feel the buzz. And you're like, oh, someone's calling. Then you feel the buzz again, and you're like, somebody just left me a message. And then you feel the buzz again, and you know they've texted you. And you do what every rational Pavlov's dog person does. You pull the phone out and you look at it. And at the moment that I looked at my phone, I realized, oh my God, it's my regional boss. Oh my God, it's Sunday. What the heck is he calling me about? Am I losing my job? Am I in trouble? I totally was not present to my blueberry pancakes and my friends any longer. So I got with myself, I put the phone in my pocket because I am about self-care. And I went back and I started enjoying the brunch. Later on I called, I found out that I got the call. You know those calls that you love to get. You're wonderful, you're amazing, we have a new job offer for you. And you're like, yes, I'm so excited. But this one turned out to be a little something different. I would have been the 5th leader at this hotel in the matter of a year, and the hotel was ready to go into foreclosure. So needless to say, I had to get with myself. You know what you have to do when you're making a life-altering decision for the short-term and the long-term impact of yourself? You gotta get with yourself. And so I did. And then what I said was, yes to stress. So I spent a couple of years saying yes to stress. And you know, a couple of years, you know what happens when you start piling on that stress onto your shoulders, onto your back, onto your midsection. It all starts to add up. And that's what happened to me. I got into what I call my buffalo style of dealing with life. You know, the buffalo has all the hair on the front, and the reason they have all the hair on the front is because they get into the storm and then they run to get to the other side. That's what I do. You give me a situation, I get a plan, I execute, and I run into the storm until I get onto the other side. Well, what I was finding out is that my relationship to stress and my relationship to life was not proving very effective. I got into year 3 and 4, and it started to really add up. And you know, when you've looked at different things, when things are starting to add up in your life and you're starting to take it on, how does stress start impacting in your life? Do you start having issues with home? Do you start having issues with your coworkers? Do you start having issues with your body? That's what started happening with me. I started having cortisone shots in my back because I couldn't stand up and I had too much pain. I had a tooth removed because I ground so hard that I had to have it pulled. And it broke the crown and the root. I also was having bouts of hives that lasted for months. I was taking 10 Benadryl a day. Don't ask me how my body stayed awake, but it did with 10 Benadryl a day. And remember what I said? When you have to make an altering life decision, like I needed to make with how I was managing your stress, what do? You get with yourself. And that's what I did. I got with myself. But one of the things happened when I started to get with myself was, I was like, you know what? My life is working. I'm enthusiastic. I'm spiritual. I meditate. I journal. I'm making my goals. My life is working. But it really wasn't working. And I'm like, so what is not working? Something I was not connecting the dots to. And that's what I offer. There are many ways that the universe says, God says, Ruth says, Oprah says, they'll tell you when things aren't working. And so, again, I got with myself and I started, darn, I missed my line, I'm going back. So I got with myself, and one of the things that I decided to do was to go raw. I started living a raw lifestyle. And I'm not talking about uncooked vegetables. I'm talking about living a life where I understood how I was relating to life, about my awareness level, and about my level of worth. How was I really valuing myself? So this going raw, this taking a life of going raw lifestyle, means how we're relating. And that relatingness comes to how healthy or how unhealthy I am in life. Because you can make some really healthy choices in your life and you see some effective change. And when you're really making unhealthy choices, guess what? You still get to see what those unhealthy choices are happening in your life. You still get to see that unhealthy effect. And one of the things that I was doing was, my mantra in my unhealthy relationship to life was, this life is like drinking out of a fire hose. My hotel experience was like drinking out of a fire hose. My relationship was like drinking out of a fire hose. My schedule was like drinking out of a fire hose. That became my mantra, a very unhealthy mantra that created this trajectory in my life. So one of the things that I started doing was, I got with myself and I said, how can I create a different trajectory in my life? How can I create health? How can I start relating to myself in a healthy way? And one of the things, all I did was, a very simple thing was, I started to live a life of possibility. And when I started living a life of possibility, that's when the trajectory started to change. And I started to experience flow. Started making different healthy eating choices. I started to have different inspirations and creativity because I made the choice to live a life of possibility versus I'm drinking out of a fire hose. But when you go raw and you're living this lifestyle of really learning how to relate to yourself, you also get the chance of looking at awareness. See, I've got to get these cooker things down. So awareness, right? And I'm really on 1 minute. I got through this whole thing in 10 minutes, right, on Saturday. This is fascinating. Because look,
going, you
Okay,
just,
okay, keep
you go as long
going.
as you want, yeah.
Oh, I can?
Yeah.
As long as I, okay, great. So awareness. The aspect of awareness is, are you responding to life, or are you reacting to life? That is the thing about awareness. It's about really getting down to the nitty-gritty and looking at, as Stephen Covey says, we have a stimulus in our life circumstances, and are we responding to it, meaning we have choice, or are we actually reacting to life? Reacting like this. Somebody says something, ooh, that makes me mad. Somebody says something, ooh, I'm gonna get back at them, versus, oh, that is an interesting thing that you just said to me, and this is how I'm going to choose to relate to life. So going raw gives you tools and gives you experiences in life where you can really develop your awareness to life, and you can know whether you're responding or you're reacting. The next thing about going raw is that you get to take a look at your worth. And worth has to do with the value that you place on something, right? So are you placing a value on your life of what's your worth or what your net worth is about? And your net worth is basically, right, what your bank account says, what your car looks like, what your home looks like. Everything outside of yourself creates a worth about yourself. Are you brave enough? Are you willing to take a look at this worth of who you are just as an individual for being here on this planet? That's the aspect of growing, of looking at things through a raw perspective, is that you actually come through this place of like owning your self-worth. You're owning your accountability. You're owning a standard. You're owning what it is that you are standing for in your life. And when you own that and you take responsibility for that, then your worth really goes up. And then you really become a place of standing for yourself, and you have a lot of self-worth versus your net worth, which is outside of yourself. When you begin to go raw in life and really own your whole relationship to life, how aware you are of your life, and begin to be your own self-worth, you then begin to come from a place that you can really, the way that you are dealing with stress in your life then becomes a welcome, something that you welcome instead of something that's debilitating to yourself. Because all stress is that it's energy, right? So when you start experiencing stress in your life and it's getting you off a target to an unhealthy relationship, to not being aware and you're reacting, to not having worth and everything is outside of yourself, the warning signals can go off. And it's just like the old thing of, warning, Roe Robinson, warning, warning, Roe Robinson, you are off alignment and you're getting back into alignment where you're using stress to say, thank you for reminding me that my relationship to life is healthy, I am aware, and I'm responding to life, and that my worth is in here. So I invite you all to get raw and harness the energy of stress. Thank you.
That was just at 12 minutes.
Okay, so it wasn't as long as I thought.
No, it was good, and you had a couple of like, you were stopping a couple of times, so I think you're good.
Okay.
Okay. Who wants to start?
Sandy, oh, sorry. No, I was just curious, what do you want to do with this, with raw? Do you want to go do stress training, or do you want to do stress workshops? Are you using raw for that, or is it just your talk? Is it your talk?
It's, what I want to do with raw is that the reason I threw in the stress part, which really is to get the connection to what raw really does. Because to me, like raw is about how, I don't really know how to talk about raw without like a connection of like, oh, it's about the way that we relate to life. Okay, so let's look at that, the way of relating to life is a stress monitor. So I thought that would be a way that people would be like, oh yeah, I want to relate to stress. So I want to take this workshop I want you to coach me, I want
Okay,
you
so
to
that's where I was
facilitate.
trying to go, what are you trying to do with it, like, get a coaching client, you know, or
Yes.
get
Or
a group,
speaking, yeah.
speaking gigs.
Yes, or have an online workshop, what I
Yeah,
really love to do
okay.
is to do that online workshop or
Okay.
workshops in person.
Yeah,
Right,
right,
yes.
okay,
Which really dives into the tools of learning how to relate to life powerfully, learning how to develop your awareness. and-
with using raw.
Yes, with
Right,
using raw.
yeah, going
Yes,
deeper
does
into
that make
raw.
sense? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So does it feel like that? Judy, when
I
you're
kind of-
talking about it?
Well, I kind of figured that's maybe where you wanted to go, but that's why I asked.
Yeah, well, that just means I'm not clear.
So, yeah, so I guess
Okay.
yeah, a little bit of clarity. And I liked it when you had some yous in there. Have you ever, but stop, right? Ask the question. I think there was still a lot of eyes in there, but I think you could shorten up your story so you could get into raw. Because
Okay.
that's the crux of what you have to offer, right? It's great to know all, like, I think your personal stuff is good for a longer workshop. But
Okay.
for the workshop, or for speaker showcase, I think you could shorten up, that is just my personal opinion, but you could shorten up your story a little bit and then ask more of those profound questions to the audience. You know, what does that feel like for you? How can, you know, whatever, kind
Well,
of,
I loved your pace, like, because I feel like I talk too much. Like, and I don't have this nice rhythm to it. I feel like I'm still trying to
cram a lot in.
teach and
Yeah.
preach. I still feel like I have a teaching and a preaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah?
And so I think if you took out some of your personal story stuff, cut it down, maybe, cut it down,
Mhm.
and then got into what's that, the more experiential, what does it feel like? Stop, you know, pause, you know, ask the question, you know, the little nudge that we get when we know things are gone awry,
Mhm.
whatever, you know.
Okay,
Is that-
like in that way, to introduce some experiential, like what it feels like to be.
Well,
an
yeah, and
active
it's just
person.
one, it's not three of them, it's, you know, like, I mean, I'm hoping when, you know, when I'm doing mine, when we do be still, yeah, we do a thing like Steve, where you go to that place, that centering place, right?
Mhm.
And you can, and you do breathe, and wow, do you know, you just, you know, reduced inflammation in your brain, and your brain just grew, you know, like, whatever. So, that's what I hope to do at a deeper level. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but.
Yes, it does.
It felt like just a lot for me and a lot about you, and I love the story, how you were. But just for showcase, cut it in half.
Okay.
So you talk about raw, and then ask maybe some more provocative questions.
Cool, yes.
I mean, I know you know this, and when I hear you talk about it, when I heard you talk about it last week, you know, but I felt like you were not connected, you weren't with us, you felt like you were more into like, how am I gonna say this? I got a little confused when you were, I liked your story, but then when you were saying that I said yes to stress, I didn't follow that. So I felt like you needed to slow down and make points more, like
Mhm.
what's on the slides. So I think like to tell a little bit of the story, but then make a point. And then I think with this, I think the way it's gonna be much more powerful is to get the audience involved in an experience with each one of those things. Because there was just a lot of talking, it was a lot of eye references. And I honestly, I didn't understand the I got with myself. I was confused of what you were really saying. So it felt like you were kind of talking around the points and not really, like it was hard to follow each of those points.
Cindy, can you elaborate on what get with yourself
Yeah.
means? Like maybe there's something that,
Well, it's
feel like there's more
fascinating, right?
there.
So I guess I use it so much that I think, oh, people like around me totally. Because I always talk about, did you get with yourself on that? Like, it's like a check-in point. Like, you know, like you check in with yourself and say, how do you want to handle this? What do you want to do with this information? What do you want, how do you see yourself going? It's like a moment of getting real with yourself. It's a moment of alignment, like you have to like gather your facilities together and process it and then make a stand. That's what I always say to people, you know, you gotta get with yourself.
real.
Yeah, you gotta get with yourself.
And
on that,
that's
because-
such a big part of what you have to offer, so I think turn that into an exercise. Like explain that like you just did,
Yeah.
and then give us an example, and let us take a moment to get with ourselves.
And
And then what did you come up
Your
with?
titles in the chambers, like using it in the chambers, it's,
Yeah.
that'd be more relevant to awareness.
Yeah, you know, yeah, that's where I started with this thing about in the chambers, but I could never find a way to translate what I do into like words to,
That's it, but that's like, what you just talked about, explaining it.
like getting with yourself, like that kind
Yeah,
of
if you
made
can do
up.
that, that's a big thing, I mean, that's a really,
So maybe I could even just get rid of the stress part and go to the get with yourself thing.
It has a,
Right?
it has an interesting like hook to it, like it has kind of an earworm effect, but I didn't get it at all. I mean, I kind of understood where you were going, but I'm like, there's something that's missing in this talk to explain exactly what get with yourself means. And I think it took my head out of the mix. If it's going to have, because it had a very prominent place throughout your whole talk, I think you have to explain it, because I don't think people are gonna get it.
Yeah, because that's where, you know, I tried to start out the beginning, each one with, you know, going for your raw lifestyle or getting a raw lifestyle, and then ending with getting with yourself to get to the next point. Like I tried to start and stop, you know, each one to make the segment changes. But yeah, if you don't get it, then it doesn't help.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got Tom Dixon in my head because I had a little chat
Oh,
last week.
Great.
So if you made that the thing, that was the one thing that 2 weeks later we would say, yeah, I gotta get with myself. And people had such a clear idea that they could catch themselves and make that something that they would do. And then make the raw piece of it the explanation of what is get with
What is
yourself.
get with yourself?
I think that's what you go with.
I'm like Judy, I'm really glad this is being taken.
Yeah.
Because that's really a great point. I see that in clarity now.
Good.
Like how I can not give up raw, but use the get with yourself as something that people could take forward, but then,
But you gotta explain it.
But
They gotta
yeah,
get
it's
it.
almost like they gotta get it.
It's
and then-
that phrase, yeah, right, that phrase that pays, get with yourself.
Yes. It's
You
good
know.
when you explain it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you kept saying it a lot and we weren't, and without an explanation, that's why we got lost.
Got it.
So I think this was the best talk I've ever seen you give, like, well, aside with these points here, but really, your first story, like, was really engaging, and I love it, like, it's the best clarity I've seen from you in this lab, so you've made great progress in that respect.
Cool.
I think your sense of purpose is really, you have a sense of purpose, you really want to offer something into the world. And like I know for myself too, I get into that teach and preach thing, but for us to relax into that, you know, and like just to think about what we're doing here, like where's the balance point between sharing something intellectually and sharing something experientially? Like you want to do both. Is there a balance point though? Where is that balance point?
Yeah, that's great. So if you are struggling with the I element of your speech, what about finding another story that's not yours? Telling somebody else's story. And something that specifically relates to raw and getting with yourself and using that in kind of a third person element, because it's so hard to get out of our heads. And when we start to tell stories, you tell stories like I do, like I'll just go and go and go, and I'll add here and I'll add there, and maybe I'll get to the point, but and I think that it becomes really difficult for me to eliminate the I language when I'm doing that. So for Showcase, we're not talking about a workshop, but for Showcase specifically, maybe you just look at somebody else's story and use that as an example, or a generic story or something that kind of illustrates the raw and the get with yourself concept. I think that's good. The other thing, I like the buffalo example. I like what you did there, but it didn't fit. It felt like it got kind of lost in the mix. So I think do it, that's great, but just figure out how you can pull that back in. And if it doesn't fit, then, it becomes one of those so what elements, and you just set it aside for another talk. But I did like that analogy, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I love raw. I think you've done something really good there. And I think that's a stress talk, it's a leadership talk, it is a communication talk. I mean, it can go in a number of different directions. So I think you're really on something big. It's just picking out those little like surrounding pieces and making it
It
fit.
sounds like a keynote talk.
It does.
Very grown up and important, the topic. It's just,
Well, I mean, you guys have given me that feedback from the very get-go about raw. It's just now me getting out of the way
Yeah, well,
to
yeah,
you'll get there.
present and own it.
yeah.
The only way that can happen, the more you do it. The
Yeah.
more you do it, the more you relax into
Very
it.
true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Yes, Mr. Ryan.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I love the buffalo thing, because I felt that, when you were whenever I was going into a problem, I just went in head first, and then got bloody from it. One little thing, when you were talking about the phone buzzing, you kept saying, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. Maybe say something like, has this ever happened to you? You had the phone, then you put it in your pocket. Did you ever, did you ever feel the vibration? Instead of saying, this is what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Just really nuanced.
Yeah, well, that's where I get, I mean, it's nuances, but that's where I sometimes get lost in, where I'm still, that's where the teaching and the preaching come in versus painting a picture, an experiential experience.
It's the same thing like when you said, I grind my teeth. Maybe have you ever felt so much stress you maybe grind your teeth, or you know what I'm saying, as opposed to say I was grinding my teeth.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just.
And I think it's harder for soft talk topics. So, for you, it's very much focused on heart math. For you, it's nutrition. I mean, for what you're talking about, as I find this too, is those soft topics, it's very hard to build structure and to stay within that structure, because if you get to, it feels like I have to have some intensely personal connection in order to do that, and the nuances they'll kill you in the mix.
What do you mean soft?
Topics like stress, life balance, sometimes leadership. Yeah, so I mean, I think
Well, you're
it's,
talking more like the essence rather than like a leadership
it's not tactical.
process.
It's not
Yeah,
tactical.
tactical, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
Like
so
Mike's work is technical.
yes, but Mike also has some very specific stories that talk to a specific audience. So I think that it just kind of gets, it's easy to morph when
So
it
you're saying
stays.
for those topics, we need to stay focused.
Well, focus is hard, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's easy to have the nuances detract from what the actual message is. So,
What would you
Chris-
recommend?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah.
What would you recommend to, with the soft topic?
Well, kind of what I just talked to with Sandy is just find somebody, until you are comfortable with your stories, find somebody else's story to tell. And use that as an example of, or something that's generic, use that as an example of what to do. I mean, honestly, I still struggle with this. So, I get you, I feel it, so.
So now, Christy, when you say it's not, which I love, it's not tactical, but what do we call what we do? It's not, is it strategic? Because it's
Not really.
No, I know, that's what so what do we call it?
I think that's where I came up with the concept of soft skills, right? So it's,
It's just
it's
a soft
communication, it's stress management, it's life balance, things that have a lot to do with our view of the world.
Yeah.
and not so much to do with the tactical way to approach it. So now you can build that in, maybe there could be some tactical ways to relate, be more aware, and find your worth,
Yeah.
right?
And I mean, there are, I mean, that's like you can build a SMART plan on, you can have tactical steps on building your awareness, your relationship, and your worth, but it's not, that's, I'd love to get what
Yeah.
that word is, like from a corporate perspective,
Yeah.
right? To say, because, you know, they always want to know your SMART plans and your strategies and your tactics, but if you don't have this, whatever this foundation is,
Yeah,
your strategies, your tactics,
yeah,
you're either gonna, you know, it's gonna lead you down the same old fucked up path, or it's
Yep.
gonna lead you to some sort of new
yep,
journey, right?
you are absolutely right.
Okay, I'm gonna keep working on that. Thank you.